2015. Would anyone like to move that? David, seconded Tim. Is there any commentary, comments, questions? Yep, I thought you might. Councillor East. We've got staff here.
There were four bylaws that were up for review. One of them's just been rolled over, the Waste Management Bylaw 2009, which essentially deals with curbside collections and preventing contamination of recoverable resources and maximising recycling. We've had a Section 155 report which just basically addresses, is the bylaw still appropriate? Is it the most appropriate way of addressing a problem? And are there any implications under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act? And in that case, there were some minor changes in the terms and conditions as listed in 5.11. So that bylaw we've deemed as being able to be publicly notified for community input. The Trade Waste Bylaw 2006 is proposed to replace this with a new Trade Waste Bylaw 2015, which the only significant change to that is looking at some permitted discharge characteristics. In the old Act, the old bylaw, the discharge of fats that were not animal and vegetable was allowable at 200 grams per cubic metre, and any animal fats was 500 grams per cubic metre. So the proposed change is to limit them both to 200, thus sort of improving the discharge to our storage system. It mainly impacts on restaurants, food shops and those sort of things. So that is also has gone through a Section 155 report, and we're recommending that that be approved with the change to the discharge. The Clean Fill Licensing Bylaw and the Licensed Waste Handling Facilities Bylaw, it's proposed that they be both replaced by one bylaw, the Clean Fill and Waste Handling Operations Bylaw. Much of the activities in these two bylaws were in common, and there's only really about 30 affected businesses in this that would be affected by this bylaw. So the main change is really just in the purpose of this bylaw. So there are a few minor modifications to that new bylaw, but essentially it's just combining both of them. So the recommendation is to approve those three now bylaws. And it's quite complicated.
Oh, it's on page 238.
Yeah, so there, the three of them are outlined there in 7.1, 2, 3, 4 and 5.
Yep.
So I'm happy to move that.
Yep, and we have a seconder.
That should be adopted.
And if there's no... Oh, Tim, Yanni. Phil. Tim, Yanni, Phil. Questions?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, you've seconded it. Yeah. Yanni.
Okay, well, I mean, this is just... I think if you look at the issues, it's really great that those issues have been identified, but this goes back into the whole issue of, what are we doing post-earthquake? We just seem to be going around in a cycle of identifying issues and not having any kind of enough regulatory or enforcement. I mean, the question I really wanted to ask staff, because I know in here that you have talked about some of those issues, but, is there anything else? I know when we develop bylaws, we're supposed to also look at what else we can do to address the problem. And I would have thought something around the district plan, around permitted land use, or consents for certain land use activities would be something that would come through. I'm just trying to find the page where you've touched on the problems associated with the old bylaws.
I think perhaps it's pertinent to note that we have a program of reviewing existing bylaws. We're not actually looking at addressing new problems. These are 4 bylaws that have come up for review under statutory provisions. Every 5 years we're required to review them, and so these 4 fall into that category, and we've made a decision to consolidate 2 of them into one.
So if you look at 279, what are the perceived problems? Difficult in monitoring temporary waste handling or storage sites which are being allowed under emergency legislation. The 2010-11 earthquake. Current inability to collect accurate waste data and information to meet legislative requirements, and a lack of purpose, and disposals of materials to and in cleanfill sites which are not considered to be inert when they interact with the environment, particularly groundwater. So, I mean, a Weka pit is a classic, like the MDF that went there, and it took ages. What we seem to have is a reactive regime where we have a bylaw, and if someone breaches it, we spend 6 months or 2 years monitoring before anything actually happens. So we still have the problem. So, yeah, I was just curious to know what we're doing to address those problems identified in 8, whether you've considered any additional things that we need to do.
To Tamara and Tim to talk about the other programs, and for solid waste, which I understand is your concern, Councillor. Perhaps.
Hi, I'm Tamara. I manage the solid waste contracts. From an enforcement point of view around the clean fills, we don't actually look after that. That's our enforcement team, and Graham Matters. There are some quite, within the bylaw, there are some quite defined monitoring requirements and enforcement actions that can be taken. The issue with Oweka, as I understand it, was historical, but the purpose of this bylaw was to endeavour to make very clear to the parties involved the consistency and standard. So we prior to the introduction of the Clean Fill bylaw originally, it was the Wild West, fundamentally. And we have come a long way in terms of making sure that there is consistency in approach and acceptance of the type of material that's to come. But for the purpose of this report, which is about the bylaw, I can't really speak to the enforcement side of things. I can speak to the bylaw itself, and they're the issues that the bylaw are attempting to address, but I can't give you detail on the enforcement processes. I'm happy to arrange for that to happen for you later. Like.
Yeah, can I suggest, because it is outside what we're dealing with, which is the bylaw, but Councillor Johansson raised a good point, and I just wonder if we could invite the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee to actually seek a briefing on because it's actually the end-to-end process. It's the bylaw, it's the enforcement and consenting. Yeah, it's kind of across the line, isn't it?
Why doesn't it just come back to the Regulations and Consents Committee?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm happy for that. Sorry, I was just looking at that because I was thinking of waste. But yes, because you cover enforcement as well, don't you? Yeah. So we'll arrange a briefing. If I could leave that with you, Councillor East, to arrange a briefing on the end-to-end process. Is that all right?
I think it's also fair to comment in this particular instance that these 3 bylaws are coming direct to Council, where only by virtue of the fact that we didn't have a Regulations and Consents Committee meeting in May due to the LTP. I can't remember the exact reason. It's something to do with the timing of the implementation of the bylaws. Wasn't an ideal situation, and perhaps sort of coming back to the Regulations and Consents Committee before coming back here may have picked up a few more things. But
When are you next meeting?
we won't meet until the 3rd week of June.
Oh, right, okay, so that's too late. Because, I mean, we could make it subject to your sign-off if you wanted to.
I'm happy to sign them off today, but I take the point of just looking at that end-to-end process. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there was Phil, and I'm not sure who else.
My question, I hope, is quick. It's just, besides this bylaw, if, for example, the stuff ending up in or through wastewater systems, if we look at, consider the question of, say, chemicals coming from factories ending up in our waterways like our Avon and Heathcote, which bylaw is that attached to, and when would we review that? Can you? Yeah. Sorry, and that's probably unfair because that's outside the scope of this report, but it just seems to me it sort of fits alongside it somehow.
Discharge from trade premises gets discharged into the sewer, so it technically shouldn't get into the rivers. So it
no, technically, but in terms of the bylaw that it applies to is which is the bylaw?
Well, in a sense, the water supply, wastewater and stormwater bylaw is relevant because, and that was reviewed last year, as you may recall, and there is provision for us within that bylaw to set up standards under the bylaw, which is one of the implementation program, part of the implementation program for the bylaw. So that potentially may address that issue, you know, of discharge, but the other, of course, discharges to water are dealt with primarily by ECAM. There's an overlapping thing, but they are. You need a resource. Given
that we're kind of off topic, I just wonder whether it actually should be a joint meeting of the regs and consents and the infrastructure, transport and environment, just so that you can get an overarching picture of these issues, just through a workshop.
Well, look, a workshop will be good, and equally I can go along to the bylaws committee.
Yeah, but you could work with David to set it up.
Sorry, I was just while the issue was being discussed, I raised it.
All right.
A memo might suffice.
Yeah, it may well be, but I think Yanni's raised a good point, which is sometimes in our individual silos, and it's just a simple comment, that sometimes you don't get the big picture because you're only dealing with one aspect of it. You're dealing with the rules, but then there's the enforcement, and then there's the consenting. The planning process is at the beginning, and they're all relevant to each other. It's called end-to-end, I think. Wouldn't it be? It would be. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very, very much. And we've done that item, and now we move on to